Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending upon when you're and where you are. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I appreciate any kind of difficulty or obstacle you may have in coming here tonight. So again, thank you so much for being here. I want to start off by telling you that what I say tonight will lack originality. Instead, I've used an outline used often by Columbus KTC under the direction of Lama Kathy Wesley. Additionally, I've used texts and teachings of Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche and also Mingyur Rinpoche. Any mistakes I make, and there may be some, if I make mistakes, they are solely mine and should not be attributed to either of these peerless Dharma teachers. So let's begin by establishing our intention and our attitude, setting our mind's direction so that we can be proper listeners. There's a Khenpo by the name of Khenpo Ken Holmes. He's a great Dharma teacher, and he always instructs his students to begin with 3 qualities of mind or heart. And he says, begin with a loving mind, a big mind, a happy mind. The idea here is that we put aside any negativity that we might hold, recognizing that Buddhist teaching is grounded in love and compassion. This love and compassion begin with those near and dear to us, but extend beyond that to all beings. So we cultivate a big heart and mind. Finally, we begin the session with a happy mind. With a loving and big mind, we're proper recipients of the teachings. So we're happy. We can rejoice in our good fortune at listening to Dharma. So these are the 3 qualities: loving heart, big mind, happy mind. So let's set our direction while taking refuge in the only reliable refuges there are: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So we will recite now the refuge prayer, and I will say it in English, and we will recite it 3 times. If you want to put the slide up there so we all can see. There we go. That's the lineage prayer. Do we have the refuge prayer? There, no. There we go. So, until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all beings. Until I reach enlightenment, may I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all beings. So next we'll recite the lineage prayer. And that prayer perfectly expresses homage to our lineage masters and sets out the directions of the spiritual journey they have accomplished and they have laid out for us. Great Vajradhara, Tilo, Naro, Marpa, Milarepa, the Dharma Lord Gampopa, know of the 3 times Karmapa, and the 3 lineage holders of the elder 4 and younger 8. the Drikun, the Taklun, the Salpa, glorious Drupa, and so forth, who have gained mastery of the profound path, Mahamudra. Akaju gurus, heed my prayer, your lineage I uphold. Okaju gurus, heed my prayer, your lineage I uphold. Please bless me so I may adopt your ways of liberation, just as revulsion taught to be the legs of meditation. This meditator does not cling to any food or wealth and severs all the ties that bind me to this present life. Please bless me to be unattached to honor or to gain, just as devotion taught to be the head of meditation, continually this meditator supplicates the guru, who opens the doorway to the trove of pith instructions. Please bless me so that uncontrived devotion may well forth, as undistractions taught to be the core of meditation. This meditator just remains, not altering at all the fresh and pristine essence of whatever thought occurs. Please bless me to be free from the thinking that a meditation, just as it is taught, the essence of all thought is Dharmachakra, not anything at all, and yet arising in all ways, appearing for this meditator as unceasing play. Bless me to know samsara and nirvana are not two. In all my future lives, may I never be apart from the authentic gurus and embrace the Dharma's glory. May I perfect the qualities of all the paths and levels. And may I swiftly realize the state of Vajradhara. So next, to express this big, loving, happy mind, we will recite the four immeasurables. May all beings gain happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all beings express great joy free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. We'll say this 3 times. May all beings gain happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all beings experience great joy free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. May all beings gain happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all beings experience great joy free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. Thank you. So my task tonight is to point out a practice approach for beginning students. So the focus of this talk will be on some of the early practices a student engages in to begin the Dharma path. At the end of this talk, a beginning student will have a structure for practice and the basic rationale behind that practice. Additionally, they will have practices that they might want to consider once they have established a fundamental practice. Then, toward the end of my talk, we will discuss qualities we want to cultivate as students using the words and advice of the 17th Karmapa. So that's our task for tonight. So many beginning students come to Buddhist practice having already read many books in Buddhism. There are literally thousands of such books in existence. And it's said that there are more than 84,000 heaps of Buddhist original teachings. Well, this is symbolic. In fact, there are a lot more. No person needs to attempt to read and practice them all. There can be the beginner's thought that we should take a scholarly effort to learn all these teachings and commentaries. Certainly, if you were a teacher at a Shedra, for example, at Rumtek, you would need to have a thorough knowledge of the Vinaya, the Madhyamika, and Tantra. But as the great Mahasiddha Karma Chagmaya said, even if you knew much, if you did not practice, it will be the same as dying of thirst at the shore of a lake. As Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said in his commentary on those words, he said, if you devote your life to just study and never practice, then you are next to material that could bring you liberation, but never practicing it is like never drinking the water. It's like dying of thirst at the shore of a lake. In another place, Karma Chagme says, it is possible you will become an ordinary corpse on a scholar's bed. This means that you could become some sort of super scholar, but if you do not practice, then you will die an ordinary death, as confused and as bewildered as anyone else. This is the purpose, there is a purpose to scholarship within our lineage, and there are some really great scholars within our lineage. But having heard and contemplated the basic instructions and teachings that we are receiving, our most important need is to practice. I've noticed my wife and I have a whole bunch of recipes in a recipe book. And we've gained a lot of them in our married life. Many of the recipes are probably wonderful, but I have to tell you, I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of times I've gone to these volumes of recipes and cooked something. So I can read all the recipe books I want, but if I don't cook them, if I don't bake them, those delicious chocolate cookies never get made. So in the same way, if you hear the teachings, but you don't turn them over in your mind, put them into daily practice, the merit of having heard the teachings will not be fully realized in your life. So our teachers emphasize diligent practice now. So let's look at what the beginning practice might look like. The main body, of course, is going to be meditation. At the beginning of this series, Khenpo Tenkan instructed us on meditation. And I, of course, don't have the skill to go into all the elaboration that he gave. I will do a little bit of review, but anyway, we have to recognize that meditation is the basis for all future practice. And this is where we begin. Through our meditation practice, we begin to slow down our minds and with a relaxed attention, begin to see more clearly our own mind and its workings. We become acquainted with our minds more on a friendly basis, you might say, and begin to work with it in a skillful way and to train it. As Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche has said, and I quote, when the mind is well trained, like a well-trained horse, it will obey its master and be useful. But if it's not trained, like that untrained horse, it can harm us, might even threaten our lives. So it is very important that we train this mind. So let's look at the structure of a practice session we might begin with. I will first read that format and then we'll explain it to you. So if you want to put that slide up, a short format. So really, it's a very simple format, and it is one that we give to students at Columbus KTC when they are starting out their practice career. So I'll just read through it first, and then I'll explain it. So the first thing is we think about our motivation. When we start our practice session, we think about our motivation. Secondly, we make offerings to our shrine. Then we perform 3 prostrations. We recite the refuge prayer 3 times. We contemplate the 4 thoughts. We do our shamatha practice. We recite the 4 immeasurables 3 times. And then we recite the dedication merit. If you want to, we could leave this up a little bit, and so that if anybody wants to write it down, they can. We'll leave that up for a little bit, and then the host can come on back to me at some point. So how do we begin our meditation session? When we meditate, the first step to practice is to establish our intention and motivation, just like we did tonight. It's important, and a very important step, not to overlook. I'll be honest with you, in my career of meditation, I have more than one time simply sat down and, sort of plopped down and tried to meditate. And that's, you want to set your you want to set the stage for your meditation through intention and motivation. You consciously express your intention and motivation right at the start of practice. At the time of practice, we expressly intend to put all other thoughts, past or future, to the side. It's not a time for worldly plans. It's not a time to engage in revelry about your past or future. And parenthetically, I have to tell you here, I've done that. I have wasted a lot of my meditation time in revelry. And that's because I never began by setting my intention and strongly setting it. So if we don't make this intention explicit, we are, just like I said, likely to fall more quickly into distraction. As to our motivation, it is to wake up for the benefit of beings. We may have additional intentions, but those are the ones that are sort of important and foundational. The next step is we make offerings to our shrine. This is going to require a little explanation, and we'll do that in a minute. So in our living spaces, we need to find an area that is set off and designated as our sacred place to practice. There we can set up a simple shrine. The shrine doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as a small table covered with a nice cloth or brocade on which we place a picture or a statue of the Buddha. We can add to that offerings of flowers, incense, food, an offering of light in the form of a candle. We can make water offerings, pouring water into a small bowl. And this suggests, this pouring of water into a bowl is to suggest our pure intention of practice. And it's an offering to the Buddha, a pure offering. The idea of offerings is not that the Buddha needs anything that we have to offer. It's rather suggesting that we have a need to expand our sense of reverence and generosity through the ritual act of offering. As our practice develops, we may want to do a more elaborate shrine design. Right now, Columbus KTC is working on a shrine design, very elaborate, very beautiful, and it's taking months to do that. But for now, for our purposes as beginners, it's okay to have a very simple shrine. The important point now is to find that sacred space, mark it off as a place of practice. Now, for some people, I've heard some people say, well, that sounds sort of weird, having a shrine in my house. But if you think about it, you probably have a shrine already in your house. If you walk into my home, the first thing you're going to see is a wall full of pictures of all my relatives, my grandchildren, my wife, my children, all of them. And under those pictures is some flowers, and sometimes I'll have some other kinds of things there, but that's sort of like a family shrine. And so all we're saying is that this principle applies when we're setting up our spiritual family shrine. The Buddha is there, and maybe pictures of others who've inspired us on the Dharma path. So next we perform 3 prostrations towards the shrine. We are showing our reverence for the sacred objects we have placed on the shrine. We are also showing a sense of submission to the sources of refuge. We are acknowledging the enlightened state. If we can't prostrate, bows are fine. Then we recite the refuge prayer 3 times, as we did in the beginning of this talk. We do this in recognition that the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, are the only safe and reliable refuge in our lives. And they guide us on our Dharma path. In the past, we may have taken refuge in all kinds of things like our health, our wealth, our friends, and so forth. And all these are unstable and unreliable. I want to tell you a quick story. There was a friend of mine that I've been talking to for a long time, and he's been doing various practices. He's now doing Nundra. And he came to me one time and he said, Lama Tom, I'd like to have a really more profound practice that I can do during the day off the cushion. And I couldn't think of one at the moment. And it so happened that Khenpo Urgyen was in town. And so I said, well, go to him and ask him. So he did. And so I asked my friend, well, what did Khenpo Urgyen tell you to do? And he said, Khenpo Urgyen told me to say the refuge prayer anytime I had time during the day. And I have to tell you, my friend was a little disappointed. He wanted something more profound, he thought. So he did it because he's a good student. He did what the teacher told him to do. So he did it. And a few weeks later, it came back to me. He said, oh, Lama Tom, how mistaken was I? I realize now how profound it is just saying the refuge vow anytime I have an opportunity during the day. So that's something we could all do. It's a practice we can all do throughout the day, just saying the refuge vow. In most of our lives, our propensity is to seek happiness in all sorts of passing things. Saying the refuge vow puts a stick into the spoke of the spinning wheel that seeks happiness in the unreliable. Then in our practice, we contemplate the 4 thoughts. These are very simple statements of fact, but they have great spiritual importance and never lose their relevance. I will tell you, digress here for a moment. I was in retreat, 3-year retreat, and I was having some difficulties practicing. I was a lot of difficulties, as a matter of fact. And I went to Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, and I said, Rinpoche, I'm having difficulty practicing right now. And what he told me was, go back to the 4 thoughts. And that did help. It refocused my attention. So let's look at the 4 thoughts. If the host wants to put those up now. So I'm going to read them first, and then we'll talk about them. So the 4 thoughts that turn one's mind to Dharma. The first is, a precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice is hard to obtain and easily lost. I must make this life meaningful. The second is, the world and all of its inhabitants are impermanent. In particular, the life of each being is like a water bubble. It is uncertain when I will die and become a corpse. At that time, only the Dharma can help. I must practice now with diligence. Third, when death comes, there is no freedom, and karma takes its course. Since I create my own karma, I should abandon all unwholesome actions and always devote my time to wholesome actions. With this in mind, I must observe my mind stream each day. The fourth and final thought is, just like the feast before the executioner leads me to my death, home, friends, pleasures, and possessions of samsara cause me continual torment by means of the 3 sufferings. I must cut through all attachment and strive to attain enlightenment. So, what is a precious human birth? It's one favorable to the practice of Dharma. In a very few words, you and I have everything we need to go from our present state of confusion and delusion to perfect clarity, to see clearly. Further, our lives are precious because our human life is a result of the karma from previous lives, and it may not be repeated in future lives depending upon what our actions are now. So knowing this, knowing this about our lives, we resolve to make meaningful by not wasting it in endless distractions. And how do we do that? By freeing our minds from our defilements and delusion through the practice of Dharma. So we can see sort of a practice pattern developing here for the 4 thoughts, suggested by the way they're written. First, we are presented with a fact. In this case, precious human birth. We have a precious human birth. We're presented with a fact which has spiritual consequences. And then we have a resolution. We resolve to make this life meaningful. So to sort of summarize here how we use these 4 thoughts, we recite the thought, we think how it applies to our own lives, bringing it close to our own heart. And then once we say, that really applies to me, then once we've contemplated it, then we make the appropriate resolution based upon that fact. Depending upon how much time we have in a session, we may work with all 4 thoughts, or we may just take one thought and think it over in the manner I just described. So it's just how much time you can devote to it. So the second thought is about impermanence. And we're talking about how incredibly short our life is. I'm 76 years old. I'm going to tell you, I can remember things when I was 4 or 5 years old, and it's just like that. It's all going to be over. Life is very short. And as the statement says, it's like a water bubble. We may think that death is at some future time, not right now, but sometimes later. And I work in hospice, and I've seen people on their deathbed who don't think, they're still thinking about the next distraction or moment, not about their death. So we may have some idea of that we're, about our mortality, but we don't always realize how precarious our lives are. Our life could easily end in the next moment. And so we need to think about this. And the second thought is about this contemplation. So then we resolve that it's unreasonable to postpone what we've resolved to do, to practice now. The third thought is, in its simplest terms, karma is our action and the force of those actions. Present unwholesome actions produce future unwholesome states. Simply, if we want to know what our future will look like, look at our present action. And if we want to know what we are right now, all we have to look at is our past action. Now, this is not to say that karma is destiny. We can through a process of Dharma practice, modify that. But at the time of death, if we practice well and diligently during our lifetime, we have nothing to fear. But in all cases, at death, karma will take its course. And we contemplate that in the third thought. And we resolve then that we will observe our mind stream each day. We might not be the great Tibetan saint and yogi Milarepa, whose mindfulness was continuous, but we can from time to time pause throughout the day and sort of for a moment out of our busy days, ask ourselves, where's my mind? Where's it been today? What's it been doing? Have I engaged with others in a way that's which was beneficial to beings? Or has my predominant thoughts today been unwholesome, full of jealousy, pride, anger, that sort of thing? That short pause to inquire, where's my mind been, is a great daily practice. And little by little through this practice, we can become ever more mindful on a more continuous basis. So that's one practice I would certainly recommend to you. Just once in a while, pausing and saying, what's my mind doing? What's it been doing? And what direction will my mind lead me if I continue in this manner? Now, the idea is not to beat yourself up if you've been involved in unwholesome mind states. The idea here is just to gently redirect your mind. It's like we said earlier, as Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, our mind can be like a wild horse and can cause us great pain, or if it's trained, it can go in its proper direction. So the fourth thought is, here it talks about the feast before the executioner leads me to my death. Here, the last meal is being compared to the short duration of our lives. We may have a nice meal prepared for us, but how much pleasure is there when the executioner is right behind us? So it is with our lives. We have our friends, maybe we have a little money, and at times we feel pleasure. But in light of our lives being like water bubbles, how much can we invest in any of these things? Are any of them a safe refuge? Of course, the answer is no. At death, do any of these possessions, wealth, friends, families accompany us? Of course, the answer is no. If we think about this, all life is pervaded by suffering. So much of our lives is about wanting what we don't get and getting what we don't want. There's the physical pain of illness and disease, and we face that. COVID was a prime example. There's the suffering of change, suffering of impermanence that we just talked about. Then there's the suffering we experience even in our happiest moments, the anxiety we feel knowing any happiness that we have will end. So there's a subtle suffering that pervades all of our lifetimes. So we put the people, events, possessions, wealth, health that we have in proper perspective. They are there, and they may be pleasurable, and they sometimes may be beneficial, but they are not reliable refuges. So we drop the futile effort to make them so, and we resolve to stop grasping after them and make an effort to drop all illusion and attain enlightenment. These are the four thoughts that lead us to the Dharma. These are the four thoughts that lead us to practice. These are the four thoughts that lead us to meditate. So now if the host can come on back. So now that we've prepared our minds, we are ready to do our shamatha practice. Khenpo Tenkan has given us beautiful and extensive instructions on meditation. I won't repeat those now, but in brief, when meditating on the cushion, we assume a comfortable posture, keeping our backs nice and straight. And if we're in a chair, we do the same. We keep our backs nice and straight. And we use an object for our meditation, an object for our mind to rest on, whether it's a stick, a pebble, a statue of the Buddha, and most commonly it's our breath. And when using the breath, we simply observe it and just observe it. And if we need a further tether for our mind, we can count in and out breaths. In and out 1, in and out 2, up to 11, 21, so forth. And when we are distracted, the technique is to notice that distraction and gently return to the breath. And that's how we meditate. We want to leave our meditation on a friendly basis. We don't want to torture ourselves with an unsustainable length of meditation. So at first you may want to just do a few minutes. But over time, if you persist and have patience, you can increase your meditation time. At first, the quality of your meditation and the frequency of your meditation is more important than the long duration. As with any new skill set we learn in life, some days it's going to go really well and some days not so good. And so we just do it. And to motivate ourselves, we recall the reasons for our practice and really focus on the four thoughts. The idea here is we do the practice whether we feel like it or not. We just do it, whether we feel motivated or not. The motto here is just do it. If we persist and not waver, I assure you, we will gain benefits and the blessing of a daily practice of meditation. Another motto here is steady as you go. Steady as you go. Having finished meditation practice, we now recite the four immeasurables. there will be, I think there's going to be an in-depth look at these at a later time. I'm only going to introduce them to you so you can go to those now. Thank you. They're up there now. Good. So we'll go to the third slide. So basically, the four immeasurables as a traditional Tibetan prayer. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be disassociated from the supreme happiness, which is without suffering. May they remain in boundless equanimity, free from both attachment to those close ones and rejection of others. You may find those four immeasurables said slightly or written differently, but basically that's they're all pointing in the same direction. So in the first one, we're expressing our love. We wish all beings happiness. In the second, we are expressing our compassion, wishing them to be free from suffering and the causes. In the third, we're expressing our wanting beings to always experience supreme happiness and joy. And the fourth, we are wishing that beings have equanimity. We are wishing that they be free from the powerful reactions which arise in their lives. Additionally, we are wishing that all beings be even-minded toward everyone, no matter how that other may act. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if whatever happens in our lives, the good or the bad, wouldn't it be nice if we could operate on the basis of it, a mind being nice and even, with equanimity? And that's what we're wishing. And we're not just wishing it for, we're wishing it not just for ourselves, but for all beings. And because we're talking about all beings, we're also talking about ourselves. And this is important, to wish it for all beings. Why do we do this at the, I put it at the end of our meditation practice. You can put it before practice, that's okay too. But I put it at the end, and I've seen it this way, and I've been taught to do it this way. And it's basically, it's a nice way to conclude your meditation by being on really good terms with all beings. So at the end of our practice, we dedicate the merit of our practice to all beings, keeping in mind, of course, we are included in that dedication. The dedication of merit is very rich in meaning. We are reminding ourselves that we are not practicing in some selfish way, but for the benefit of all. The merit we gain in practice here is not to be seen as some kind of material way. It's not like we are accruing money that we put in the bank, sort of like a Dharma bank. From one perspective, we can see merit as a greater openness to the truth. We wish to free ourselves and all beings from the delusion, from all delusion and its consequent suffering. Our practice, however meager it may be, allows us greater openness to the truth of Dharma. And so this is the dedication we say at the end. So let's recap. When you're doing your daily practice, think of your motivation. Make offerings to the shrine. Perform 3 prostrations. Recite the refuge prayer. Contemplate the 4 thoughts. Do your shamatha. Recite the 4 immeasurables. And then recite the dedication of merit. Okay, so if the host will come back. There we go. So if you can do this practice once in the morning and once before you go to bed at night, that'd be wonderful. But in any case, before you go to bed, make 3 prostrations to the shrine, recite your refuge 3 times, and then if you have a water bowl, empty your bowls. I would like to make a little point here. What we want to do is to work towards making what we learned from our teachers and on the cushion pervade our lives, whether we're on the cushion or off the cushion. Instead of always, and this may sound a little, I don't think it's controversial, but it may be misunderstood, but I'm going to say it anyway and explain. It may be more important not to always be concerned about increasing the time you spend on the cushion. It may be more important to try to erase the imaginary line that most people draw between their meditation seat and the rest of their lives. So maybe it's not always important to try to increase our meditation. Maybe it's more important to break down that barrier between our meditation cushion and our daily lives. So in this light, we train our minds in wishing to benefit beings. My teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, always said that, and is often repeated by Lama Kathy, that if we develop a really strong inner wish to benefit all beings, your practice will automatically deepen. And so to accomplish this, think about your wish to benefit beings as often as you can, while you're walking, while you're standing, while you're eating, and think, may I benefit beings, and may that benefit be to everyone who sees me, to hear me, or touches me. And when I wake up in the morning, I could say, may everything I do today benefit beings in some way. And may we all come to Buddhahood. At night, before I go to bed, I might say, may I benefit beings tonight, even in my dreams. Now, don't go and say that Lama Tom is discouraging you from meditating. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply noting that we are householders, job holders, parents, and adult children of aging parents. We have many, many responsibilities. There will be some time limits imposed upon us because of our responsibilities. So the idea here is to see all of our life as a practice arena. If we don't do that, we are wasting a lot of our life. Now, I could also tell you that anytime you have the opportunity to go away and do practice retreats, that's wonderful. And that can be very helpful. But what we want to do is break down that wall between sitting on the cushion and real life, and not, our regular daily life. So now we've concluded what an initial practice might look like. And so let's take a peek at what future practice might look like. So if you want to put up that slide. So we've already mentioned quiet sitting meditation. We've also talked about refuge. And we've talked about daily practice described previously. Those are foundational. A student may later on want to do compassionate practice called Tonglen. And later on, I believe Lama Kathy is going to give us a nice talk on that. That's something to look forward to. And I won't do too much here other than to say it's a practice whereby we take on the suffering of beings in an empathetic way, and we give to beings as best we can all that we have that's good that might help them. And we do it on the breath. The next practice, a student often goes to The Great Path of Awakening. It's a really beautiful book. I wouldn't recommend it. Well, you can read it, but it's best if a student is accompanied by a qualified teacher. And it's basically an introduction to relative and ultimate bodhicitta. I've done this with a number of students, and it's been a life-changing experience for them. Other practices that you can engage in is Chinrezi, Green Tara, and Medicine Buddha. I might say here, there's no particular, there doesn't have to be a particular order to it. I know of students whose entry point into Dharma has been actually Chinrezi. It's a wonderful practice. It doesn't require a great deal of explanation, although it's very profound. And so I think it's a wonderful practice for all of us to engage in. And finally, the student who wants to engage in one of the most profound practices, which is Mahamudra, they can begin doing Nundra. And basically after that, a student can be given lifelong practices, mantra practice, and so forth. So that's basically it. So if you want to return, okay, thank you. So I've mentioned a number of practices beyond our initial practices. And as there are many, I've only listed a few. But it's always with the idea of steady as you go. Become familiar with your initial practice, and the rest will follow. I mentioned them tonight to get you curious and to let you know that there's a great variety of possibilities for future practice. Now that we've looked at practice, let's look at what kind of practitioner we want to become, how we want to develop, and what qualities of mind will facilitate our growth. In a past teaching, the 17th Karmapa said, and I'm going to quote, the main point is that if we are going to be real practitioners of the Dharma, then we need to become independent, autonomous practitioners, people who actually know how to practice by learning how to be quite direct and honest with themselves. We might think we can always be sitting in front of our teacher or master and practice the Dharma by continually receiving advice from him or her about what we should and should not do. But if we are always in need of advice, then someone who can give us advice might not always be there for us. So I think what the 17th Karmapa is telling us is to listen to the teachings and to the teacher's instructions, take them to heart, and practice them with a directness and without arrogance. Implicit in the Karmapa's teaching is a model for the teacher-student relationship used by many Tibetan teachers. It's referred to as the bee and the flower. The bee is the student and the teacher is the flower. The bee comes to the teacher and gets the nectar and goes back to the hive where the honey is made. In the same way, the student gets the teachings and instructions, goes back to their home and practices. The student comes back for more nectar when there's a need. This is the bee and the honey flower um, analogy for the student-teacher relationship. Now, finally, to practice, we need faith. We say that the great yogi of Tibet, Milarepa, was a practitioner of enormous faith. As a Westerner, faith may sound a little off-putting, for it seems to mean that we are to believe in a dogma of faith which is otherwise inaccessible, unseen, unverifiable with our own experience. This faith is based upon a higher religious authority that is not Buddhist faith. We want to have Milarepa's faith, but I think if we can see Milarepa's faith as confidence, we're probably closer to the truth. Buddhist confidence is confident in the authentic teacher, teaching, and their potential, and the teaching as a potential to lead to enlightenment. We have confidence in our guides, but most importantly, we have confidence in ourselves, in our ability to make progress. And we do. We have that. We have this precious human life. We have that possibility. This confidence, I assure you, increases as you practice. Of course, the first point is to make sure you understand the practice and practice it as you were given it. So practice does increase our confidence. To this practice of, to this faith or to this confidence, we add two other things: inspiration and curiosity, because those two will lead us to investigate and deepen our spiritual practice, allowing our faith and our confidence to actually blossom into wisdom. But confidence and faith come first. So now I'm going to end this talk by quoting one of the great lineage masters, the Lord of Dharma, Gampopa, who said, "For human beings without faith, the virtuous Dharma cannot arise. Just as a seed scorched by fire cannot become a sprout that is green." So right now, my prayer is that each one of us learn to practice well, that we have confidence in the efficacy of our practice and our ability to practice. May we be honest and without arrogance in our practice. May we be unwavering and steady as we go. And finally, my wish for you, wish for all of us, is that our practice blossom into wisdom that leads to our total and our complete liberation. Thank you so very much for your attention tonight. I recognize that some of you may have had difficulties being here tonight, and so even more, I thank you. And we can end, as we always in practice, with our dedication. So if the host wants to put that dedication prayer up, we'll say that together. And again, I'll say it in English. By this merit of listening to, contemplating, following the teachings. May we attain omniscience, clear thinking, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, the enemy, our delusion and our afflictive emotions, and free all wanderers soon from this ocean of existence, churned by great waves of birth, age, sickness, and death. Thank you so much for your time. And my hope is that you practice well. Take care, my Dharma brothers and sisters. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of your precious human bodies. Good night.